two things that I enjoy in this world. It's, knocking down overrated celebrities, entertainment figures, and also debunking really idiotic conspiracy theories. And today, guess what? I get a 2-for-1 special. We're going to talk about something that is not even remotely new, but because of a new, and I quote, documentary that is out, there's like an entire generation of ankle biters and rugrats and Gen Z twerps who are just now kind of hearing about this. And like I said, if you're a Gen Y kid, Gen X, this is nothing new to you. It's been going on since like 1994. And generally, what it is the old conspiracy theory that Kurt Cobain did not commit suicide. Kurt Cobain was actually killed by, well, it fluctuates, between who the killers may be. But the prime suspect in this particular theory, usually Courtney Love. And now, we've heard this for years and years and years. Courtney Love, hired a hitman. We had El Duque from the Mentors go on one of those talk shows before he mysteriously died and said, Courtney tried to pay him to kill him. We got that new documentary out. It's called Propumentary, combination of propaganda and documentary, called Soaked in Bleach, which has this really long backstory behind it about how Courtney hired some dude to kill Kurt, and the Seattle police, for whatever reason, decided to cover it up. Just this really sort of grandiose, hard to chew, sort of fantastical scenario. And here's the thing: when you look at this Kurt Cobain guy, and I've made videos in the past talking about how I'm not really a big fan of him as an individual human being. Yeah, Nirvana had some good songs, on no account of him, because frankly, he's a terrible guitar player. His lyrics are stupid. The guy from Puddle of Mud can imitate his voice. It shows you how great and unique of a singer he is. But they had some catchy songs. Every time I hear "Drain You" or "About a Girl," I will turn it up on the radio. I confess to this. But by and large, when you look at the legacy Kurt Cobain has, his music, he only made 4 studio albums? 3 studio albums, actually. And the other was like a glorified, cover album and a live performance. So he was around, making music on a mainstream level for about 5 years. He blows his brains out and he becomes a legend. He becomes like this really vaunted figure. Everybody loves him. He's great. He's a hero. And the fact of the matter, if you think Kurt Cobain's a hero, a dude who just did nothing but sing stupid songs and, shoot up heroin and abandon his children and just be a complete layabout that contributed nothing to society whatsoever, you got bigger problems than wondering about whether or not he was actually killed by his wife. But that's an aside. Going back to conspiracy theory, I've heard this for years and years, but I really haven't seen anything in the way of substantial proof. I haven't actually watched the Soaked in Bleach documentary because my time is a commodity, and I don't really have not even to sit around and watch this just to move forward. But I have gone online and seen the finer points of it, and to me it's just such a fundamentally absurd premise. Of course, Kurt and Courtney were not getting along. We know that goes along. But at the same time, dude, Kurt Cobain, this guy was in the throes of depression. I mean, there's really no way around it. He's one of those guys where you could tell he was not long for this earth. And even if he had not blown his brains out in April in 1994, dude, he would have been dead like in a year or two anyway. He would have overdosed on something. And, it's just, I just kind of grasp for straws, because to me it just seems like such an obvious foregone thing. He wrote, this really dark, depressing music about how he hated himself for being a sellout. You've got all these journals, we've got these documents, we've got pretty much this huge line of materials. We got home movies that he made, expressing that the dude was not really happy to be living. The guy, he really was suicidal. This is a guy who, right before he died, wrote a song called "I Hate Myself and Want to Die." I'm sorry, the dude was going to kill himself no matter what. And we hear some mysterious things, and everybody kind of forgets that before Kurt actually killed himself in 1994 in Seattle, he also had that suicide attempt in Rome, which which a lot of people gloss over, when he put a whole bunch of pills in a bottle of wine and drank it, and, had to be hospitalized. And of course, people are saying, "Oh, well, Courtney did that too." The thing is, this is the guy who really, he got money. He really didn't know what to do with it, and he was a drug addict. And drug addicts, surprisingly, do not make good choices. And one of them, he just ran around, and when your entire life revolves around shooting poison into your veins, and that's pretty much your sole reason for living, it kind of stands to reason that eventually, one day you're going to get really depressed, you're going to take a look in the mirror, and you're probably going to hate yourself. And if you got enough motivation, and you feel that motivated, and you have the weapons and the means available, you might just blow your brains out. And I think that's what happened to Kurt Cobain. And yeah, I know, the dude was on a ton of heroin at the time. But the fact of the matter is, this guy's been doing heroin for how many years before he actually killed himself? Before he pulled the trigger? I mean, the fact of the matter is, the guy where he basically, he made all that money off Nevermind. And what he did was, he actually took all the money he made from that. He bought an apartment with Courtney Love, basically locked himself in there, and just did nothing but heroin for 3 years straight. I mean, that was this guy's life. This dude was a champion at doing heroin. And, I guess, if you do heroin long enough and you have the money and you keep buying more of it, eventually you'll build a tolerance. So I'm guessing, even though he had an insane amount of heroin in his system, it's probably enough for him to be cognizant to, pick up the shotgun and finish the job. And of course, had that allegation, soaked in bleach, that for whatever reason, the King County Police Department decided to get rid of the long rifle, just destroy the evidence because it's a conspiracy. And then they're like, "No, here's actually a photograph of it. We'll show it to you." And he's like, "Oh, well, okay, never mind. I was wrong." Sorry, I'm in traffic, and some people just don't know how to drive. I almost got hit by a guy over here trying to change lanes. But anyway, this guy, he's been doing that for years. And I'm just saying, it was there. It was one of those things where it was going to happen. The dude was depressed. He was on heroin. He had guns everywhere. I mean, it was a perfect storm. This dude, I'm sorry, he would have gone the Lane Staley routes. He would have gone the Scott Weiland routes. The dude was destined to die. I mean, there's just no way around it. This was not a guy who was cut out to live. He didn't want to live. And, quite frankly, considering his actions, that he made all this music about how much, his parents separating, mess with him, all this stuff. And what did he do? He turned around and made an orphan out of his own daughter. That he can't go out there and live and do all that and live his own life and be a parent. That instead of, going out and making money and turning around and using it to, give to charitable causes, to give to like hospitals, and actually make a benefit in the world. What do you do with it? Well, I've got my money from Geffen Records. I'm gonna go do some black tar heroin. I'm gonna spend all this money on smack because that's way better than using it on vital social services. So he was a selfish person. He was a selfish person who really does not deserve any of the retroactive acclaim he gets. And all this stuff about him, being murdered, it's a conspiracy. Dude, get real. I mean, just look at the guy's track record. He was suicidal. He was horrifically depressed. He was not going to make it. It was just a matter of time. And that fateful day in April 1994, he made the conscious choice to kill himself, and now he's gone. And, I hate to say it, but really that's the best career movie ever made. If he would have stuck around for another 8 years, he started making really crappy music like Metallica, and, nobody'd care. I mean, we'd all be sad and nostalgic like when the dude from Alice in Chains died, but, he went out in his prime. If you die before you're 30, you never really have a career nadir. And when you do, you live forever. So on that part, instead of looking back on it as a tragedy, as a conspiracy of him being murdered, maybe you can look back on it as a conspiracy of, well, the guy clearly hit his prime. He didn't want to have a backside to his career, so he killed himself, before he actually had, crappy music on his resume. To me, that actually makes a whole lot more sense than saying Courtney Love just killed him. And another thing about Courtney Love, I mean, how many years did she do heroin, right? For years and years. And, people who do heroin, you'd think eventually she'd slip up and say something. But it never happened. Because even though we don't like her, even though she says some dumb things and she's very easy to dislike as a human being, this is all on Kurt. It's all on Kurt. It's always been on Kurt. And frankly, guys, it's time to move on. Preferably to a musician who's actually good, first and foremost.